Hi, my name is Rick Cook. I'm your professor for English 121, and this is a short video to welcome you to the course. Um, what's up in front of you is an outline. I always like to have something written in front of students as I'm speaking, so you're not just looking at me. The goals for this short video are: is this the right class with the right professor at the right time in your life? Um, I know that these are high school classes, so this video is for a class in Fowler, a class in Pewamo, Westphalia, and a class in Portland. And I know that you may feel like you have to take these classes, but you certainly do not. College is a choice, and I want to make sure you're making the right choice. I also want in this short video to make sure that you understand D2L, Google Classroom, and the weekly sheet. These are things you'll use all the time, and you got to make sure that you can effectively use them. To get to this video, you already had to get into D2L. That same login and username will allow you to get into your Google Classroom and also into your Google Suite. The weekly sheet is actually a Google Doc. So, is this the right class? The purpose of this class is to offer you transferable skills. In a very strange way, the class itself doesn't matter. What matters is your ability to use what you learn in the class after the class. Um, it's extraordinary how much writing there is at the college level. I regularly take classes at LCC. I've taught at LCC for 20 years. The last time I took classes was this last summer. I do that, one, because I enjoy always learning, but I really do it so I can keep a sense of how much writing do students have to do in the curriculum. And it's extraordinary. I was just working with a student in the nursing program, and he had an incredible amount of writing to do across a wide variety of science classes. So, this class is about, can you do that kind of writing after this without me by the end of the class? So, in terms of college level writing, uh, is your content insightful? Is your organization clear? Is your style concise? And are your mechanics correct? And that's actually the four components of the rubric by which your essays are graded in this class. Um, Another thing to think about, is this the right class for you? Is that this class is about real writing. Um, Much of the writing done in high schools, and I've taught in high schools for 25 years, much of that writing is not real. It's to prove to a teacher that you read To Kill a Mockingbird, or that you can use AI well enough to suggest that you actually did read the things they carried, or whatever common text is being taught or talked about. The purpose of real writing, people don't write because there's assignments. Real writing is because we want to expose insights about a topic. Okay, we want our audience to understand something that it doesn't already understand. And that's what you're going to do in this class. You're going to expose real insights about a topic to your classmates that they don't already know. Um, this real writing requires an extended revision process. Um, you need to ask yourself, how strong can you make three writing projects with 16 weeks to work on them? This is not written the night before or the day before. You have 16 weeks to work on these. Um, Almost no essays are passing at the beginning of this experience. Sometimes it's because it was written the night before. Sometimes it's because someone spent 2 weeks on it. You're evaluated on how well you can write when you have 16 weeks to work on three projects. Um, it's extremely high standards. I'll just be honest with you, most Americans cannot write at this level. 36% of Americans have a 4 year degree. First year composition is required of all classes, and it has a really poor passing rate because it's so hard to write at this level, and it's such a big step from high school. Now, because I taught high school for a long time, in fact, I'm teaching in a high school right now. I teach at the Wilson Talent Center. It's the Capital. It used to be called the Capital Area Career Center, but it's the vocational center for Ingham County. And I teach college classes for Ferris State here with high school students. I've worked with high school students my entire career. I think I have a lot of strategies to help them be successful, but most Americans cannot write at this level. So you're choosing to learn to write at a level that most Americans cannot. The class does presume you can already do some things in terms of writing. That you can write complete sentences and you can follow basic grammar rules. It assumes you can read for information and you can read some writing to study it as a model. It assumes you can organize a basic essay, and it assumes you can use technology. I'm just going to be totally, completely honest with you at the beginning. Most of you cannot already write at the level that you will need to write to pass the class. And I know that's not what high school is often like. I mean, you can pretty much get through a lot of high school classes with what you could do in eighth grade. Um, if you could already write at the college level, why would you have to take this class? And I want you to really think about that when you start getting back your initial grades on your drafts. In my class, everything can be rewritten all the way until the end of the class to demonstrate your growth, to demonstrate how you have developed as a writer. Um, Knowing that you probably are not already at a college level, you should really think about how to approach those early grades, which are not set in stone, can change all the way throughout the course. So, is this the right class for you? Am I the right professor? I am not for everyone. I am not a teacher. To teach this class takes zero education classes. It doesn't take any education classes to teach this class. I'm a writer that donates my time to help less experienced writers. Um, and you got to really think about what college is. College is your decision to study some stuff from people who are good at it. It's not to go to a place where you're compelled excuse me, where you're compelled to sit and pass enough tests to get a C minus or a B minus or an A minus or an A. That's not what it is. It's to learn a skill. So you learn chemistry from chemists and you learn history from historians. Um, you learn to write from a writer. And because of this approach as a writer, it really makes me a particular kind of professor. I know that writing is never done, it is just due. You're going to hear me say this over and over and over again. Writing is never done, it is just due. As a writer, I really embrace the process of writing, which is messy. There's space in my class to throw out drafts. There's space in my class to radically change your work. Um, as a writer, I know that conversation is really an invaluable part of the writing process, and we emulate that in online ways. And I'm also counting on you guys being able to talk to each other in Fowler or Pewamo or Portland. Um, Feedback is really critical, but I won't give too much. This is not me marking up your drafts and then you just changing what I marked. This is you taking holistic feedback from me and trying to improve your product without me. This is about what you can do without me. And real writing can't be rushed. You can't do real writing in rush scenarios well. I'm not interested in prisoner writing. I'm not interested in reading something that you wrote because you have to. That's not real writing. You're going to have a lot of freedom in this class. In fact, you have the ultimate freedom to pick your own topics. You need to pick things you want people to know about. Another thing you need to know about me as a professor is my effort matches yours. For kids who never stop working, I never stop working. For kids who don't work at all, I don't work at all either. Is this the right time to take this class? It's a 4-hour class, and the college gives us some guidance. It's supposed to be 2 to 3 hours outside of class. I really think it's more accurately 6 to 8 hours. It's supposed to be 2 to 3 hours per hour of class outside of class. I really think it's less than that. I think it's appropriate to say 6 to 8 hours outside of class overall. Most of that is writing. It's not assignments. It's not little ticky-tacky stuff. Most of that time will be you thinking, you talking, you reading, you writing drafts. You're being consumed thinking daily about your writing projects. Another key to success is asking questions. I do not check in with you and say, hey, how's it going? You're paying me to teach you something. And just like if the burger that comes out in the restaurant isn't done right, the waitress counts on you to speak up, right? Um, Lots of contact is part of my salary. So I give students my cell phone number so they can text me. The email is at the end of this video. You can email me. I will always email you back if I'm awake relatively quickly. Um, Ask questions, ask for help. Cultivate some relationships with your peers. Make sure you have time for that. Getting honest feedback is extremely valuable to a writer. Um, is this the right time to throw out bad ideas? Are you at a place in your academic career where you can throw out an idea because you care about your product? That's college. Um, don't treat essays like an assignment. Okay. I have very rarely seen good writing that was good just because it was assigned. If you don't care about your work, Robert Frost said something about writing once. He said, no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader. If you don't care about your work, the reader isn't going to care to read it. And that's high school. Okay. College, you care. You want people to know what you're writing about besides what it's worth, quote unquote, in a class. That's real writing. Okay, I want to make sure you're aware of D2L and Google Classroom. So I'm going to jump into different D2Ls of Fowler, PW, and Portland. They're all set up roughly the same. So I believe this one is Portland. Okay, so this one's Portland, but I use the announcements quite a bit. This announcements section is where I'll put notes to you, reminders. Here, I put the face-to-face sessions that Portland has. Fowler has some, PW has an online real-time session. Fowler has some face-to-face sessions, so I put those in there initially. But besides announcements unique to your section, this is the same for everybody over here. Class materials and discussions. So if I click on class materials, I find the weekly sheet. So this is the weekly sheet for Fowler, but it looks very the same for PW and for Portland. This is where you actually go to do your work. So these links take you to your work, what you need to read or what you need to watch. It also has instructions for posting things to D2L. But this is where you get the content of the class. It might direct you to a spot. Like, for instance, it might say, hey, you need to read a chapter in the book, read chapter 18, Developing Voice. So you have the book. So that's not a link. But there's a lot of links in here to videos and to readings. So you always go to the sheet. It's set up by week, and that's how you get through the class. The other part of the D2L is discussions. So we use D2L to discuss our projects. So you'll do a lot of process work. You'll submit questions, you'll submit outlines, you'll submit drafts that you're looking at each other's, and we do that on the discussion board. The discussion boards are always in D2L. So you get your work from D2L, you do your discussions on D2L. When discussions are set up, here's your first discussion board. You can also get to discussions by going to the communication tab, and here you can see them set up in forums, SA1. And then as I add the discussions, you'll find them in these forums. But you can always find everything by going to content. And then here's the class materials and the weekly sheet. And there's discussions. Okay, the other place where you need to know to get to is Google Classroom. I will post the Google codes. I'll put them in several places. They'll be posted in D2L here in the announcements. They'll also be posted in on your weekly sheet. I don't want to give them to you yet. This video is for all three sections. The codes are obviously by each section. So I'm going to give you the codes in a way that you can only get into your class. So when you go to, I'm assuming a lot of you have familiarity from high school with Google Classroom, but a couple notes. You got to use your LCC account. Okay, make sure you're using your LCC account. You have an LCC Google account, even if you haven't been exposed to it yet. It's not D2L. It's the same username as D2L, but then it's at mail.lcc.edu, and your password's the same. You can always go to your LCC student email. So if I wanted to go to my email, you have a student email that looks like this. You should be able to get to pretty easily. And then from the Google Apps menu, you can find Classroom. Classroom will take you to a screen like this. You probably don't have anything in it yet as an LCC student. Go to the plus sign and join a class. There'll be a join code on the weekly sheet and in D2L. Once you join a class, this is where in Google Classroom is where your work gets submitted to me. So if you're discussing something, if it's in a process that your students, that your fellow peers are looking at, that's in D2L. Here is where we have the actual assignments get submitted to me. So all the essays, the final drafts with the due dates, the portfolio, and the final reflection letter. So these are the big assignments in the class, and I'll be going over them shortly. So that's a brief introduction to Google Classroom. If you want to meet with me, so Palma, Westphalia, we will have our ORT here. You join it here in the Google Meet. That's where we can meet virtually. If you would like to meet virtually with me in office hours, for everyone, you go to your Google Classroom and you'll find the join button here, and that's where you join. If you want to meet outside of office hours virtually, you join here. I'm very open to meeting outside of office hours face to face as well. It can be much more effective sometimes to work face to face. And I've worked face to face. I live in DeWitt, so it's easy for me to go to Fowler or PW or Portland. I have gone to all of the. I've been to the Portland McDonald's. And actually, Fowler and PW kids, I usually meet in St. John's because there's coffee shops and stuff with Wi-Fi. Okay. The other thing is D2L will have your grades in it. Okay, so the grades, and I'll go over that right now as we go over the syllabus. On the weekly sheets, you can find a link to the syllabus. So here's the syllabus for the fall. Important things, here's the required text. Your school should be providing this. I can provide readings early on. If your school hasn't gotten it to you yet, please let me know. You need to read this syllabus in depth. I'm not going to read it to you right now, but I'm going to go over some highlights. So each week you have quizzes over readings and videos, as well as discussion boards. You'll always be in some step of the process of writing a project. Okay. You'll always have something due every week associated with the project. So readings, read this to find out what the readings are about. Videos, read this to find out what the videos are about. The quizzes, I give quizzes for two reasons. First of all, you have the quiz beforehand. So before you do the reading, before you watch the video, you have the quiz. So it helps you figure out what's important, what to focus on. But it's also a way that you can help your grades in this class. If you care about grades, it's very hard to get a 4-point on an essay. The writing standards are quite high, and most students don't have the writing skills to begin with. So for those of you who want to make sure you get high grades, you should really make sure you're doing well on the quizzes, which are just about effort. Like you have the questions ahead of time, you just look up the answers in the work. The discussion boards is where we interact with each other around your work primarily. That's primarily what you'll be talking about on the discussion boards. I ask that you're present, honest, respectful, and engaged. Okay, grading. So you write 3 essays in this class. Each essay is about 1,000 words. The only thing that really changes is that there's an expectation that the insights get better, and they're also later on you will have sources. Early on for the first essay, no sources, no research, no MLA, no nothing. Notice all of the essays can be revised up until the last day of class. So you'll turn them into me. I'll give you a bunch of feedback. I'll tell you what the grade is and how to get a 4-point. Notice the weighting. Essay 1 is 10%. Essay 2 is 10%. These aren't worth a lot because they're early on, right? Essay 3 is worth 40. By the end of the class, largely as a function of just you working, you should be able to create a passing level essay. Your weekly work altogether is 30%, and you should easily get that 30%. And then there's a reflection due at the end of the class. It's about 1,000 words, and that's 10%. You notice that these percentages add up to 100. So you can actually think about this in terms of points. There's 100 points in the class. Essay 1 is worth 10 points. Essay 2 is worth 10 points. Essay 3 is worth 40 points. Each week is worth about 2 points. A couple notes about the weekly work. You got to complete all the work that week to get the weekly points, and it's pass fail. I mean, I look at your stuff, you did it, you pass. I look at your stuff, you didn't do it, you don't pass. It's very important to know that there are no late assignments. Okay, you can't be late in this class. There is no late work grading, no late work accepted. If you have an emergency, if you're like, something happens, you contact me right away. I can be an understanding person about rare emergencies. People aren't going to have a bunch of emergencies in the course of a semester. That's not how college works. So if you have too many emergencies, the college says this isn't a good time to take the class. You need to take it at some other time. You have to write about 4,000 words over 4 projects. So that's the 3 essays and the reflection to pass the class. And this has become more important as AI has become a way for weak students to try to get out of the class, essentially. You have to have all steps of the writing process to earn any points for a particular essay. You cannot turn in a draft that I haven't seen before, that hasn't gone through the process. It won't be accepted, okay? Read this in here about feedback. My office hours are 8 to 10 a.m. and 7 to 8 p.m. on Wednesday. So if you want to meet me at office hours, you send me an email or you send me a text and we meet online. I always have those chunks of times available, but I'm not just sitting there waiting and hoping somebody pops up, okay? As an adjunct, I'm all over the place. So I'm very happy to meet outside of those times if those times don't work for you. So I think I hit all the big policies. Contact. I prefer texts. That's the easiest. It's the easiest way for a student that's sitting there working to get immediate feedback. But I get it if you're uncomfortable with that. Send me an email. That's fine. Just cookr23@mail.lcc.edu. It pops up on my phone. I respond right away. Do not send me messages in D2L expecting to get response quickly. So D2L does have this mail function up here. The only place I can respond to that is in D2L. So I got to be sitting at a computer to do it. Don't email me through this system because it takes me a while to get back to you. All right. And there'll be people who forget that and then wonder why I don't get back to them. Email me at this email, or you can text me. Either of those are totally appropriate. So for Fowler and Portland, you have some face-to-face meetings. Fowler and Portland both have 3 2-hour meetings, and the meetings are critical. The students who don't come to the meetings almost always don't pass the class. So keep that in mind. You're not coming to the class that you paid for. It's unlikely that you're going to be passing the class. For Pewamo, Westphalia, we just have 1 meeting, that first ORT, and that is really critical. So please make sure that you make it. The ORT will be in Google Classroom from 4:30 to 6:30. In D2L, there's instructions about to get all these things. The welcome video always goes longer than I intended it to, but there's a lot to the class, and you're taking it online, so that means watching a lot of videos. Go get started. Find the weekly sheet and start working through the tasks. Okay, so in D2L, you'll go to the weekly sheet, which is under class materials. There it is. That takes you to a weekly sheet, and you start working through these tasks. Now, a tip, you notice the last task is to complete the Essay 1 response. Well, you can look at that first. You can look at what you're going to be questioned about. And then as you're going through all of these things, which is reading and watching, you can look for the answers. It's not supposed to be a gotcha. It's not supposed to be it's supposed to be something everybody can get 100% on if they just do it. So not a lot of college is about just doing it. Most of college is about the quality of the work, but this is one place that's like that. You'll see that the early weeks have a lot in it. The later weeks have all the big assignments and when they're due, but the readings change because they're really based on my students, on what I see students interested in, your strengths and your weaknesses. We kind of move that around based on the experience in the class and how we're doing and how I'm doing. So there is some flexibility later on in terms of some of the assignments, but the first several weeks is already there. So that was my attempt to have a short introduction to the class. I hope it was useful. I still expect you to read the welcome letter because there's a lot in it, and to read the syllabus. You need to do both of those things to be successful in the class. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send me an email or a text. Either one is appropriate. I go by Rick. If you would like to call me something other than Rick, Professor Cook is appropriate. Just don't call me Mr. Cook. It reminds me of my years as a high school principal, and I don't want to go back there. I very much enjoy being a professor, and that's who I am now. So it's nice to meet all of you in this virtual world, but thankfully I will get to see all of you either in an ORT for Pelham, Westphalia, or face-to-face with Fowler and Portland. Take care.